So obviously, Oilers moving on to Vegas now. You mentioned there's probably a few changes they need to make. Like, what would be the number one adjustment you think the Oilers need to make to beat the Vegas Golden Knights?
Oof. It's tough because you look at that series and it's going to come down to the defensive side of the puck for them
Mm.
and how much can they kind of protect Calvin Pickard. Because, I tweeted, I was like, where does Stuart Skinner go next year? Because I'm like, you can maybe go back to him, but if I'm Stuart Skinner, I'm sitting there like, kiss my ass, everybody. But Calvin comes in and he does what he's been doing for forever, and he just provides relief. And guys are playing hard in front of him, but they're still letting a lot get there offensively. Like if LA would have stayed aggressive, I don't know how the series goes, and I don't think Vegas is not going to make that mistake. I don't think they will, and I think they have kind of a similar team makeup, but they're just a little bit their top guys are a little bit younger. So it's like not by much, but just a little bit younger. And I think that Minnesota series, the first two games, I was like, this is gonna wear on Vegas, but they kind of wrestled it back and they play like a better version of LA Kings' system. Like they play that zone defense. So they're still gonna pressure in the neutral zone in a 1-2-2, but when they get into the zone, it's very that your centerman's never going below the goal. Your D men are never going above the tops of the circles. They're not going to chase five men around. They're going to kind of play tight and wait for their opportunities. So I think it's going to be again. It's the same old story with the Oilers. It's how much can the defense and the goaltending hold up and provide enough relief to kind of let them score their troubles away. And you look at Edmonton, it's like most teams, it's like the race to three. If you get 3 goals scored on you, you're probably losing. Edmonton doesn't matter. You can give up 3 or 4 and they could still pull the win out because they're so dynamic offensively. So that's where for me it's I'm like you keep it 2-3 goals, keep it tight. Their power play kind of found something. So it's going to be interesting to see against Vegas. I think Vegas PK is good and has more of some offensive threat capabilities where they can kind of score shorthanded. And I think it's again, I look at it and I'm like, Vegas, that Pacific was so tight. And it's like Vegas is kind of the same level ish of LA. So for Edmonton, I got to be pretty happy coming out of this series being like, this is kind of a very similar team. They'll be faster, they'll be more physical. And Vegas will kind of just try to outsmart them a little bit. So it's going to be an interesting series. And Edmonton hasn't had a ton of success against them. So I'm going to see if they can kind of, it's different because they have so much success against LA and they have the mental edge. I don't think they have that mental edge against Vegas. So that's going to be the between the ears that's going to happen in this series. So
One thing that was encouraging for me is the fact that the Oilers won these last two games with Connor and Leon not getting a single 5v5 point in either of them. Like the 4 forward lines for the Oilers, it's like, man, you can hang your hat on that. That helps. But then you go to the blue line, JD, and it's like, okay, this patchwork blue line. There are no pairings. Everybody plays with everyone. Darnell Nurse took a shift with every single one of these defensemen last game. Is that sustainable? Do you trust Knobloch, or should we trust Knobloch and Coffee, or do you think this is a blue line that could get picked apart once the competition level just gets raised a little more?
you just don't have any other options, though. Like,
I guess,
you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, you're kind of just in. I think after game two, they figured like we gotta, like to your point, like everybody's got to play with everybody, and we got to play more situational pairings versus just you're sticking your 3 pairings and that's it. And if Mattias, I haven't read much how far out Mattias is, but if he comes back in round two, I mean, it's really going to slot some people in some better positions. And Evan will really have Ekholm with them, and then Nursey can kind of play with the rest of the guys, and you can just kind of mix and match. But listen, they did a good job. After game three, I thought they did a good job, and it's one of those things. I don't know how to feel because you watch that series and you're like, was it Edmonton that really took over, or did LA just mentally like get so fucked that they just kind of like made so many mistakes and like I'm not discounting anything the Oilers did because what they did is so impressive on the mental side and them to stick with it and never kind of panic and you could see the frustration but they stuck with it and they got some really good goaltending and you you said it. The biggest thing with Edmonton is when they get secondary scoring, they're hard to beat because Connor and Leon will get their cookies, but on the kind of off game or so, like game 5 is kind of a game where Connor and Leon are held off the score sheet, or the 5-on-5. They kind of should lose that game, but their third and fourth line steps up, and that's the big thing with Edmonton. If they can keep that rolling, I think you're going to see some good stuff. And I mean, look, those guys that were injured coming back, they're getting healthy and they're getting experience every single game. I thought Evander Kane was extremely effective. Mm-hmm. Trent Frederick too got better as the series went on, and Connor Brown's actually just provided some great speed and so you got to like what you see. I'm interested to just see how this series plays out. It's one of those where we all had LA winning, and a lot of people did, obviously not Oilers fans, but a lot of people had LA winning. And now it's like, okay, we all have to reset and be like, fuck, they could do this. Like they could get through and beat Vegas. And, Vegas kind of showed that they're potentially beatable against a Minnesota Wild team that is kind of a few pieces away from being something special. So yeah, I listen, it's my long-winded answer of saying, like, I'm not saying anything, so I look bad again. I'm just going to be like, yeah.
Beat around the bush.
I'm just beating around that bush. I'm beating around it. No, but listen, that you got to give credit to that decor. They did a good job late. They still gave up a lot of chances. But last game, I mean, that was a beatdown for a game 6 where their season's on the line. That was it. They quit, and it was 5-4, but, I thought Edmonton really handedly took care of them. So,
what's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.